Make sure that CCN clip ready. We need it for the second.
4.
Facts from the Clarendon correspondent coming through now.
3.
All the international stories in the folder. Go to
2.
Newsreaders all set.
Yeah, man, everything set, everything ready.
1.
From the grill to Morant Point, NewsTalk 93 FM has got it covered. Across the 7 seas to the 4 corners of the world, it's all captured on the 93 radar. 93.1, 93.3, 93.5, 93.7 and 93.9 on your FM dial. Real News at 5 starts now.
It's Friday, September 11, with the 5 o'clock newscast here on NewsTalk 93 FM. I'm Kayla Wright.
And I'm Andre Bernard.
Coming up in this newscast, Jamaica continuously meeting targets under economic agreement with IMF.
University College of the Caribbean concerned with utterances and conduct of some politicians to secure votes.
Water restrictions remain in place despite rainfall across the island.
And former JLP councillor Don Crary and his alleged accomplice remanded on rape charges.
And now the details. Co-chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Richard Biles, says Jamaica continues to meet its target under the 4-year economic management program with the IMF. Speaking at yesterday's press briefing, the chairman said following its review of the performance of critical indicators in the month of July, it has determined that the government is collecting more revenue and spending less. Biles says tax collection also continues to perform above projection due to the implementation of a new tax regime, which saw the effective corporate tax rate move to 17%, down from 25%.
Last year, businesses, when they declared their quarterly profit and paid the tax, were quite conservative in their estimate of the amount of tax they would eventually pay at the end of the year. And then when the end of the year came and the profits were better, they paid a large sum of taxes in the March quarter. This year, they are seeing a more even flow of corporate taxes each quarter compared to last year when business people were saying, well, I don't know, let me hold off, let me wait and see what my year-end profits look like.
Biles says profits were also spread more evenly throughout the year, allowing businesses to keep up with quarterly payments. He says should general elections be called, whichever party wins must continue the program with the International Monetary Fund.
Whoever wins has to look on the Jamaican reality. I don't think that anybody will say, okay, out with the IMF. Even if you're not happy and satisfied with everything in the agreement, I think that what would happen is that there would be a sit-down around the table with the IMF, with the fund, and a discussion about those issues that you're less than happy about, and some working out of those differences, even as the program continues. I don't think Jamaica can afford to have the program stop. It has to continue even if there are improvements that you want to try to negotiate with the program. And I believe that is what would happen.
And Biles is urging the government not to drag out the calling of general elections. He says it appears an election is imminent, as both major political parties have indicated that they intend to finalize their list of candidates for general elections by the end of this month. Biles says if the period of uncertainty continues, it could lead to a wait-and-see attitude on the part of businesses.
Good sense would say, if we're going to have one, let's not drag it out, let's have it. But I think the worst thing would be, we know we're supposed to have one shortly, we think it's coming, so we kind of hold back, let's wait and see. It don't come then, the next quarter, we say, well, let's wait and see. It don't come, and it drags on for, however long. I think that's just the worst outcome. The best outcome is we have the election.
That was voice of co-chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Richard Biles, speaking at yesterday's press briefing to update the country on its stance with the IMF.
Meanwhile, head of the New Nation Coalition, NNC, Betty Ann Blaine, is questioning a comment made by Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton that this election will be about issues and about the thinking man.
Well, I'm happy to hear that our politicians are in fact talking about issues and talking about the quote-unquote thinking man's election, because we've never encouraged that in this country. In fact, one of the things I'm curious about is what have we really done to cultivate an informed and educated electorate? Who is this thinking man? And when Minister Hilton says this should be a thinking man campaign or election, what does that really mean? What is being done to encourage people to begin to think about issues and not just the usual cass and dog walk that we've been accustomed to in Jamaica?
She also asks whether the politicians will shift their focus on certain issues.
Are the politicians going to conduct town hall meetings where people can begin to think and articulate their views and ideas about Jamaica, a new Jamaica, etc., etc.? I'm very curious. I suspect these are just words. I'm really not sure what we have ever done to encourage an election, a campaign where we focus on the issues, and there are critical issues. To me, the most important one is the economy.
She says she has never seen such hard times in Jamaica.
I have never seen a time so hard. And the ordinary person on the street, I mean, who can go to supermarket? Who? I don't know how people are managing. I have no idea how people out there who are minimum wage earners, how on earth they buy food, send their children to school, pay rent and pay light bill. I have to give the ordinary Jamaican credit because I don't know how it's done.
Head of the New Nation Coalition, NNC, Betty Ann Blaine, Hilton made the comment at a meeting in West St. Andrew, in the constituency of West St. Andrew over the weekend.
University College of the Caribbean, UCC Deputy President Dr. Damien Black is decrying the utterances and conduct of some politicians to their supporters in what he says is their bid to secure votes in their constituencies and maintain power. He was making specific reference to recent utterances by South East St. Andrew Member of Parliament Damien Crawford that he had tricked his constituents.
Will say and do anything that is required to secure the support of the majority of the people, so that they can attain, ultimately as candidates in a constituency, as members of a group of persons who are the majority party in Parliament. So it is exploitative, and it suggests some of why it is that there's this angst and there's this alienation amongst many persons when they look at and think about participating in the system.
Black says while there are some people who will have no problem with such conduct, at the same time they will be looking for something from their Member of Parliament in return for supporting him or her.
The critical thing is this, there is a mass of people who won't be turned off or even raise any concerns as I might be raised. No, they will see this as good move, this is acceptable. He's our candidate. He's the one that we want to do this. So therefore, this is par for the course. But I think not. It's a sense of persons who will do whatever is required. The other thing about it is that when you hear that, it then says to the other persons who will participate that I will participate, but my vote requires something in return.
The UCC Deputy President says the result of such a situation is that these loyal supporters will always be relying on the system, but the lack of state resources will be a factor.
What you have happening is persons who will cling to the system like leeches. The challenge, though, is that the resources in the state, resources might not necessarily be there to support the pork barrel politics that we have gotten used to, over time. And so the challenge is not so much the education system, although that has its weaknesses, but I think far more the practice of politics as we have gotten used to it.
That was voice of Deputy President of the University College of the Caribbean, Dr. Damien Black. He was speaking on the evening edition with host Garfield Higgins last night.
Meanwhile, founder of the St. Patrick's Foundation, Monsignor Richard Albert, says while some of the violence is absent from political campaigns, the overindulgence of party supporters with food and liquor at dances and rallies is common within both political camps. He says supporters will have to get out of this system and vote with a sense of purpose.
Partisanship, the rallies, the goat feed, all that, we're still at that place. And it's going to be a long time unless those people who are not aligned with either party decide that they're going to vote and that they're going to make a statement by their vote. Unless that happens, thank God the violence aspect is out of our election. I mean, in the 70s and the 80s, it was just horrendous. But thank God we're out of that now.
He says the Corrigoat politics is still around, and it is the uneducated people who are demanding this type of politics from their MPs who are granting them their wishes.
It's still the curry goat and the red stripe beer and $5,000 and type of mentality that's there. And unfortunately, it's the uneducated people that are demanding it, and the politicians are following them and giving them what they want. Instead of, I had high hopes for Damian Crawford to stand up and say, and I'm glad he put his monies into education. But yes, unfortunately, Garfield, we're still in that situation.
Founder of the St. Patrick's Foundation, Monsignor Richard Albert.
You're listening to News on NewsTalk 93 FM. The time is now 12 minutes after 5. Opposition spokesperson on finance, Audley Shaw, says he is waiting to see the outcome of the missing funds at the National People's Cooperative Bank of Jamaica, NPCB, when it is discussed in an audit report next week.
That is contained in an audit report, which we are now being told will be discussed with the Minister of Agriculture next week, Wednesday. And I'm waiting to see if this government intends to keep that report away from the public view in the same way that they have done the report on the health sector. So I'm waiting to see what happens after that report is to the Minister of Agriculture and the responses to the audit reported to the Minister next week.
Speaking on the evening edition with host Garfield Higgins yesterday, Shaw made revelations regarding managers and board members who he says were lending monies to themselves. He says as a result, some $600 million could not be accounted for.
What we do know, and as you might be aware, I put into the public purview from as early as May of this year, there was a sort of an incestuous relationship that had developed where the managers and board members were lending money to themselves, and among other things, there's about $600 million that can't be accounted for. You know also that the DBJ had to write off over $1 billion in loans. And, of course, much to my surprise, the DBJ, apparently having written off that loan, decided to exit their monitoring relationship with the PC banks several years ago.
Shaw says things have gotten to the point where managers were suspended from the NPCB.
And having done that, things have now gotten worse at the PC Bank. And farmers tell me sometimes it takes them years to try and get a loan out of them. But the situation is not good, and apparently now, I don't know if it was my intervention that triggered the audit, but the audit is in. Apparently managers have been suspended, sent on leave, and the ACB, according to what I'm being told, it appears to be virtually in receivership to the Agricultural Credit Board at this time.
That was voice of opposition spokesperson on finance, Audley Shaw. The audit was conducted following repeated calls from him for an immediate investigation into the management of the institution. At the time, Shaw had said the deposits of over 200,000 members were at risk as the NPCB was insolvent and loans amounting to $1 billion had been written off.
Lawyers representing team members of Northeast St. Elizabeth MP Raymond Price are at the Supreme Court trying to get an injunction to stop tomorrow's selection exercise in the constituency. Price is being challenged by Evan Redmond for the leadership of the constituency and the right to represent the People's National Party, the PNP, in the upcoming general election. Among those persons backing Price to remain the party's candidate are Angela Forbes Jarrett and former mayor of Black River, Daphne Holmes. According to Holmes, Redmond is not a member of a group, and under the PNP constitution, he is not eligible for election. Holmes has also charged that many persons who are listed on the delegates' voters list have long died. It is understood that the lawyers are heading to court with funeral programs of people who died over a year ago, but are still listed as delegates.
Despite the rainfall experienced over the island in recent weeks, the National Water Commission (NWC) says there has been no significant improvement at water catchment facilities serving the corporate area. Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Charles Buchanan, says the Hermitage Dam hovers at 41% as of yesterday, while the Mona Reservoir is at 20%. However, he says the country's catchment facilities are still at critically low levels, and as a result, water restrictions remain in place.
Former JLP councillor Don Creary and his alleged accomplice, 22-year-old Shanique Williams, have been remanded on rape charges at least until Monday. At that time, resident magistrate Simone Wolfe-Rees will make a decision on the bail application, which was made this afternoon by Creary's attorney, Tom Tavares Finson. The prosecution opposed bail. 48-year-old Creary is charged with rape, while Williams is charged with aiding and abetting and sexual touching. The police reported that in 2013, Creary and Williams took the 15-year-old female complainant to an apartment in St. Mary, where she was allegedly given alcoholic beverages and sexually assaulted. They further said, following the incident, the teen told her mother what happened and a report was made to the police. Subsequent investigations led to the arrest of the two. This morning, the court was told that the complainant first gave a statement to the police in March 2014. It was further reported that the teen gave a second statement to the police on September 3 this year. The magistrate expressed concern about the long delay before the matter was brought before the court. The head of the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse has been summoned to appear before the court to explain the delay.
The Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy, ONDCP, in Antigua and Barbuda has warned that bank accounts of individuals and businesses are being targeted by cyber criminals. The agency said it had received several reports about criminals using a scamming technique known as phishing to send fraudulent email messages luring victims into providing information such as credit card and bank account numbers, passwords, and login details. It says the information is then used to access online banking applications and steal funds from the accounts of the victims. The ONDCP has advised all individuals and businesses to be particularly vigilant when divulging their bank account information and their passwords. And that's local and regional news. For international news, we join the BBC.
BBC News with Natalia Ralston. At least 65 people were killed in the Great Mosque in Mecca in Saudi Arabia when a construction crane collapsed onto the building. Another 80 people were injured. Images on social media showed worshippers covered in blood and parts of the crane, which appeared to have broken through the ceiling. Germany says it's mobilising troops in readiness for a fresh influx of thousands of migrants over the next few days. The government says it's expecting about 40,000 people to arrive in the country this weekend. Meanwhile, the International Organization for Migration says almost 433,000 refugees and migrants have crossed the Mediterranean so far this year. The Turkish authorities say the week-long military curfew placed on the predominantly Kurdish southeastern town of Cizre will be lifted on Saturday morning. Earlier, the European Human Rights Organization, the Council of Europe, appealed to Turkey to allow observers immediately into Cizre, where soldiers have been hunting Kurdish militants. The International Energy Agency says oil production is set to fall sharply in many parts of the world because of the low price of crude oil. Prices have been driven down by members of the OPEC cartel, in particular Saudi Arabia. A number of energy firms in the North Sea, Russia and the United States face closure. The Egyptian security forces have arrested several suspects in the theft of a large amount of gold and silver from the Finance Ministry's coinage department. The arrests come just a day after the robbery was announced. And hundreds of thousands of Catalans are taking part in a rally in the regional capital, Barcelona, in support of independence from Spain. 500,000 people had registered for the event, which is being held 2 weeks before regional elections. And that's the latest world news from the BBC.
Broadcast Jamaican and NewsTalk 93 FM now gear the news in the Jamaican language.
Good evening. My name is Kadeen Marshall, and this are the news in the Jamaican language. Dr. Fenton Ferguson, where the Minister for Health, said important for Jamaican people support people in the country who have mental disease. In Ben talk yesterday, our meeting where them keep for start up World Suicide Prevention Day. Him say people need to know say them can help people who want to kill themselves, and everybody have to work together to deal with the problem. Him say although the rate of people kill themselves in the country not high, the country have to put some things in place to stop people from kill themselves and save people life. One witness tell the Tivoli Garden Inquiry say when Christopher Dodd's coke been around Tivoli, no gang war could go on. As according to the witness, if somebody thief something in a Tivoli, them would have get catch, and if them rape, them would have get punished. She better answer some question where Valerie Nita Robertson then asked her. One of the lawyers, Valerie Nita Robertson, and one of the lawyers were chat for the Jamaica Constabulary Force. She better ask the woman if she loyal to Dudus, and the woman tell her she only loyal to God and her picnic them. 2 men get shot and dead in a St. Anne yesterday. The police not tell nobody them name yet. According to Superintendent Wayne Cameron, who are the head of the St. Anne Police, them find the first body little after 9 in the night on the Fall Farm Main Road in a Claremont, and them find the second body this morning in a Crescent Park in a Golden Grove. The 2 body them then full of gunshot. The police said them don't know why the man them dead, but them are looking at the case. News from foreign. At least 87 people dead after one crane drop on the top of the Grand Mosque in the Muslim holy city, Mecca. According to the Saudi Arabia Civil Defense Authority, about 154 people get hurt. Them don't know what caused the accident yet, but some picture from the accident show part of one big red crane crashing at the roof of the mosque. The crane was crashing at the mosque being help with some construction work at the mosque. My name is Kadeen Marshall, and that are the news in the Jamaican language.
Broadcast Jamaican and NewsTalk 93 FM just give the news in the Jamaican language.
The 5 o'clock Sports Roundup is brought to you by NewsTalk 93 FM, life-changing radio.
Good afternoon. With your 5 o'clock sports roundup here on NewsTalk 93 FM, I am Mikhail Drama Johns, and we begin with tennis. U.S. Open defending champion for men Marin Cilic is currently 2 sets down versus Novak Djokovic in their semi-final. Djokovic is unbeaten in 13 meetings between the two, and at Sports Time had won the first 2 sets 6-0, 6-1. And earlier today, an all-Italian finals for women was made after top seed Serena Williams fell 6-2, 4-6, 4-6 to unseeded Roberta Vinci. Meanwhile, earlier in the day, Vinci's compatriot Flavia Pennetta beat Romanian second seed Simona Halep 6-1, 6-3. And now to take a look at track and field. Today's Diamond League meeting, the final for the calendar year, saw Elaine Thompson failing to claim revenge versus Daphne Shippers in the women's 200 meters. Elaine Thompson, who had played second fiddle to Shippers at the 200 meters in China for the World Championships, posted a 22.26 seconds for third, being beaten also by Alison Felix, who was second in 22.22 seconds. Meanwhile, Shippers posted a time of 22.12 seconds to claim the Diamond Trophy. Meanwhile, for the men, double sprint silver medalist at the recent World Championships Justin Gatlin today earned some consolation in claiming the Diamond Trophy for the 100 meters after a win in 9.98 seconds. It was a joint clocking, with the American being given the win over Femi Ogonode of Qatar, while France's Jimmy Vicour was third in 9.99 seconds. Jamaica's Asafa Paul was fifth in 10.04 seconds. Ogonode, meanwhile, won the 200 meters, with Gatlin having pulled out of that event. He posted a time of 19.97 seconds for the win, and Jamaica's Rashid Dwyer was third in 20.27 seconds, while his compatriot Nikhil Ashmead was fifth in 20.59 seconds. Meanwhile, in the field, world champ silver medalist Dane Richards narrowly missed a win in today's shot put event after a heave of 21.37 meters. New Zealand's Tom Walsh won by 2 centimeters, his best throw being 21.39 meters. Meanwhile, Kimberly Williams placed fourth in the women's triple jump with a leap of 14.28 meters. And now on to football. Manchester City's Fabian Delph is expected to be out for 6 weeks after picking up a hamstring injury playing for England in the European 2016 qualifier against Switzerland. The 25-year-old midfielder pulled up in the first minute of Tuesday's game at Wembley, which England won 2-0. And Manchester United has had David De Gea sign an extension of contract, and that contract extension is a new 4-year contract with the club. The 24-year-old Spain international almost joined Real Madrid on a transfer deadline day, but the necessary paperwork was not submitted in time. And also, Chelsea goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois requires knee surgery and will be out for quite a long time, according to manager Jose Mourinho. The 23-year-old Belgium international damaged his medial ligaments during training on Wednesday. Mourinho confirmed the extent of the injury at his media briefing before tomorrow's trip to Everton. And finally, Manchester City Women's Continental Cup quarter-final with Arsenal, which was slated for Sunday, has been postponed. This is due to City being charged with fielding an ineligible player during the group stages. The club are accused of using a player not registered with the Football Association Women's Super League in the group match at Sunderland on August 15. Defending champion City won the game 3-1 and finished top of their group 2. The club have until September 17 to respond to the charge. And that's it for the 5 o'clock sports roundup here on NewsTalk 93 FM. I am Mikhail Drama Johns saying stay tuned for the business news and weather report.
The 5 o'clock sports roundup was brought to you by NewsTalk 93 FM, life-changing sports radio.
And at 28.5 minutes after 5, we take a look at business news. In the stock market today, the stock market index declined by 648.07 points to close at 98,149.98. The junior market index declined by 34.11 points to close at 954.91. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 20 stocks, of which 8 advanced, 5 declined, and 7 traded firm. Market volume amounted to 7.5 million units, valued at over $123.9 million. Sagicor Real Estate X Fund was the volume leader. Stocks advancing were Carib Cement, Jamaica Broilers Group, JMMB, Kingston Wharves, NCB, Radio Jamaica, Sagicor Group, and Scotia Investments. Stocks declining were Carreras, Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, Scotia Group, Seprod, and Supreme Ventures. On the foreign exchange market, the US dollar traded for $118.62, the pound sterling for $182.58, cents, the Canadian for $89.81, and the euro for $133.12. And that's business news.
And now we take a look at the weather. There is a tropical wave to the east of Jamaica, which is expected to move across the island later this evening and be west of the island by tomorrow. In the forecast for tonight, conditions will be partly cloudy.
To end the news, a recap of the main points. Jamaica continuously meeting targets under economic agreement with IMF.
University College of the Caribbean concerned with utterances and conduct of some politicians to secure votes.
Water restrictions remain in place despite rainfall across the island.
And former JLP councillor Don Crary and his alleged accomplice remanded on rape charges.
And that's the 5 o'clock news, sports and weather package here on NewsTalk 93 FM.